Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Esteemed ladies and gentlemen, I am hoping you're having a great morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on when you're watching this video. Today, I would like to ask for a small favor, which is to imagine a situation between two different countries. For example, country A has a lot of land for agricultural purposes and to build more buildings, but they lack in human resources. And we have country B that has a lot of people that needs to go into the workplace, but they lack job opportunities and job offerings. Naturally, both of these countries will form an alliance, a bond, or relationship. What I've just said before is actually an example of multilateralism, because based on the definition, multilateralism is an alliance between two or more countries. But before I get into my main topic of the speech, I would like to introduce myself. Hello, my name is Deeadra Aisha Putri from Senior High Global Islamic School to Serpong, and today I'll be talking about multilateralism or multilateral trade, due to multilateralism having a lot of different sectors. Or specifically, today we're talking about how to propagate international trade stability through multilateralism. So let's backtrack for a little bit. Multilateralism, as we know of, is two or more countries forming an alliance. So that means multilateral trade is actually two or more countries forming an alliance or an agreement to exchange goods and services and to also strengthen the economy of the member countries. So, how do we know that multilateralism actually stabilizes our trades? Well, one of the journals by the European Commission, it is stated that since the foundation of the multilateral trading system in 1947, world trade has expanded 300-fold and today makes up about 60% of global GDP, also supporting jobs, growth, and investment all around the world. This is partly thanks to the successive reductions in tariff negotiated through the multilateral system. It is also stated in the same journal that even though things needs to be done more, multilateral trade is also a help due to the WTO contribution in global sustainable development and also the economic openness it has guaranteed and helped integrate many developing countries in the world economy, lifting hundreds of millions of people out of poverty and decreasing inequalities between countries. So now we know that the trade is stabilized by multilateralism, but there are things to be considered and factors that are put into play, such as WTO or the World Trade Organization. WTO, from the official website, is actually an international organization dealing with trade rules between nations. But today, there are several debates whether or not WTO is effective and if it's a failure. That's why I would like to list off the failures and also the successes. Let's start with the failures. The first thing is that there is a perception that WTO caters and also favors big economic powers like the US and Europe. Secondly, the WTO monitoring and functioning are lacking due to the lack of transparency. But we can't also discredit how WTO has contributed to the economy and how it is very much still needed, especially with the recovery of our economy after the pandemic and how multilateral trade between two WTO members are actually more effective than between non-members. So, how can we ensure that the WTO still stays better or probably even better over the years? Well, they can start rebuilding trust with other countries such as developing nations and also to find a common purpose. With that, as I said before, small and developing countries will start to put trust in WTO again and thinks that the system benefits them. After that, the members within the WTO can find a common purpose so they can be more uniform and having one vision. And also, after that, they can pursue much more avenue to make WTO much more better. According to an article written by the German Federal Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Action, Christian Bluff, there are 3 things to be considered and how WTO can actually make it better. The first one is WTO members need to establish a new work program to address long-standing and more recent use of trade distorting policies that are systemically important. Number 2, they need to enhance the scope of the Secretariat to provide more inputs. As we go over before, WTO is a very member-driven organization, but the Secretariat has little to no voice in what they wanted to put out. The third and last one is to review WTO institutional performances. The operation of WTO is not subject to regular assessments, and establishing a review mechanism that incorporates self-assessment by WTO bodies can present members with facts that they may or may not fully be aware of, and information on working practices, member engagement, and outcomes. With the data I've presented before from both the European Commission and also Christian Bluff, I've concluded that yes, we can propagate international trade stabilization through multilateralism, and it has been happening for years. But there are things to be considered, such as World Trade Organization and how it is at its center it's needed. But we need to change how the WTO works so it can be even more better. And this ongoing thing will just keep us from our ultimate goal, which is propagating even more international trade stabilization. That is all for my speech. With that being said, it's been a pleasure with all of you today and presenting my perspective on how multilateralism helps international trade stabilization. And thank you so much for listening and have a good day. The last I say, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.